Now, let me bring in a guest on this topic. Omar Rahman is a fellow at the Middle East Council on Global Affairs. He joins me now live from New York. Thank you, Omar, for joining us here on TRT World. We know that Joe Biden and Netanyahu haven't exactly been able to see eye to eye lately. Do you think the U.S. administration is now looking for a new leader to take over from Netanyahu?
Yes, first of all, thanks for having me. But yes, I think this both speaks to the tensions in the relationship between the U.S. and Israel at the moment, specifically between the Biden administration and the Netanyahu government, but also the tensions within Israeli politics at the moment. So on that front, certainly Gantz is a rival of Netanyahu. Netanyahu, as your correspondent said, is deeply unpopular after October 7th. He was polarizing before October 7th. And maybe Benny Gantz senses a moment of opportunity here to position himself, at least in the eyes of the United States, as the most likely successor to the Netanyahu government should it fall. But from the U.S. point of view, they don't want to take a public stand, or take any meaningful action against the Netanyahu government, against the Israelis. And so this is almost a passive-aggressive attempt, it seems like, to take a stab at Netanyahu by meeting with his cabinet minister without Netanyahu's permission.
So what about the U.S. administration's credibility now? I mean, on the one hand, it's airdropping aid into Gaza, while at the same time supplying Israel with the weapons to attack Gaza. I mean, some would say that this sort of shows an incoherence in U.S. official policy there in the region. Do you still see the U.S. as sort of holding the key to unlocking this decades-old conflict?
Yes, I mean, the Biden administration definitely lacks credibility for all the reasons you stated and for its policies over 4.5 months. I mean, this move to drop aid and not just be able to speak with its closest ally who it's enabling in this war, to just drive aid across the border simply and provide it to the people that are suffering there. So it has to drop aid from the skies. That's deeply embarrassing, and it undermines the credibility of the United States. But again, I think it's because the Biden administration is unwilling to take any meaningful action or to pressure Israel meaningfully in this campaign. And so that definitely undermines its credibility. The Biden administration looks weak, it looks incoherent, and it looks unable to do anything that it wants to do.
I mean, the U.S. does, in fact, have a range of sort of escalating options at its disposal. Do you see the U.S. changing tactics anytime soon and starting to use those tools of leverage, such as its unconditional financial and political support, to try to push Israel into agreeing to a ceasefire?
I mean, it seems that it's unwilling to do that. It hasn't taken any steps to meaningfully pressure the Israelis. It certainly has leverage at its disposal. It could end aid, it could end arms shipments to the Israelis, but it's not doing any of that. In fact, it's still using those things. It's still vetoing ceasefires at the United Nations, calling for ceasefire at the Security Council. And so I don't see the Biden administration taking that type of action. And that's why I see this move with Benny Gantz almost as passive aggressive. Again, it's not doing what's necessary, and therefore it feels like it has to act in certain ways, and it's trying to find workarounds towards resolving the situation directly. And to answer your previous question, is the U.S. the key here? Certainly the U.S. is a major player. It's Israel's closest ally, and it has the leverage to take action to put this conflict in a different stage. But American politics is driven by domestic considerations, and those domestic considerations have prevented the United States for decades from taking an even-handed approach to this conflict. And that's why it's failed time and again.
All right. It'll certainly be interesting to see what happens during these meetings between the U.S. officials and Benny Gantz. Omar Raman, thank you so much for joining us from New York here on TRT World.